All right, welcome back to the Paperstac Podcast. My name is Rick Allen. You know this guy, Brett Burky. What's up, man?
Nothing. Just full. Went to lunch. Had a good time.
Yes, we're super excited today. You know, in the past, I would say 8-9 months, we've had a lot more land notes come on. And we've had some people asking questions about it, and I'm not a land note expert, and
I'm not either.
You're not a land note expert. So we thought we'd bring on somebody who's a land note expert, and it's somebody actually we got to spend a little time with out in Las Vegas. And
which conference was that?
It was a land profit generator thing. Yeah. It was great. Sitting right next to us, and now here on the show, JT Olmstead. How's it going, my friend?
It's good. I appreciate having me on.
Yeah, definitely. I got to get to know you out in Vegas, and I was so jealous because we're sitting there at the booth, and we weren't in monkey suits or anything, not in suits, but we were, we had.
Yeah, JT was pretty relaxed.
He was very relaxed. Had some cargo shorts, flip flops, a t-shirt on, and I'm like, man, this guy is living the life.
Yeah.
Sitting there, and he looked at me. He's like, hey, man, you own the company. Do whatever you want. I was like, he enjoyed it. Had some dinners and learned a lot. Super smart guy. I'm happy to have you on the podcast with us. You're in land notes, right? That's kind of the sector you're in. Tell us a little bit about your past. How did you get to where you are, and what was like the first aha moment with the land notes, and you kind of figured things out, and you're like, this is the path that I want to go.
Yeah, so when I first got introduced to kind of land flipping in general, a lot of the educators or influencers in the space at the time, they did a lot of land notes. It was kind of the big thing to do, generate notes, specifically was the strategy. And so as I moved my way into that industry, probably 6 years ago now, it was natural for me to figure out how do I take this sale and not just sell it for cash, but turn it into this more longer term revenue stream, right? Kind of juice the returns even further. And it was kind of an easy fit because the beautiful thing about flipping land is that a lot of the buyers do want to accept owner financing. We sell 20 to 30% of all of our sales on owner financing. Mm-hmm. And because it's such a cash heavy market, there's just less general liquidity for land. And so there's a lot more wheeling and dealing when it comes to things like owner financing.
That's good. So how did you find out about land flipping? I guess you don't just do land notes. I know you sell a lot of your land through cash, but you also do so you can get that residual income, juice the investment, like you said. How did you find land investing?
I originally came across the concept on a podcast. So I've always been interested in investing in general, whether it's stock investing or other forms of real estate investing. And as I spent more and more time learning about those industries and kind of consuming different content from different creators, I had an educator come on to one of these podcasts, just pop on as a random guest, and they were talking about flipping land. Mm-hmm. And the claims they were making were astronomically good. And so I thought, man, even if this is half true, I should probably learn about it because the returns can be ridiculous. So I took it to heart enough to dive in and do my own research. And it turns out those claims were a little inflated, but the returns were still quite Competitive. So I decided to find an educator, and I ended up working with Seth Williams over at RE Tipster.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So Seth's been great. I've been connecting with him ever since, and he was the first person I learned about land from. And I took his course and then jumped in from there. Taken a lot of other education courses since then, and obviously I had a lot of years of just testing it out myself. But that's what drove me into this path, and then set me off kind of doing land full time, which is what I do now.
How long have you been doing this?
A little over 6 years.
Wow.
And what before that was it? Did you have a W-2 job, or what was your?
Yeah. Previous to this, I worked as a network engineer. Yeah. So I just designed global networks.
Okay. So you had a little bit of a computer background, a little understanding of that. Well, that's awesome.
With when you got into it, I'm assuming you didn't start off creating notes. Most people don't get in and say, I'm going to create a note, because it just seems like a lot of people start off, they just get in and they want to just get it and flip the land, Is that how you kind of progress, or did you eventually get into making land notes, or was it day one you're making land notes?
Yeah, the beautiful part about starting with an education course like the one that Seth offers is that I had a good sense as to what could be done early on. It kind of broadened my vision pretty quickly on what could happen. So my first 2 sales in land were both notes.
Oh, wow.
One of which I still have to this day. So I knew going in right away was like, hey, I can sell for cash. And to a certain extent, you need to recycle your capital, right? But I also knew that like notes could be a fantastic option. And especially if I wanted to hold them, long term and collect that kind of built up residual income. And so I saw when that happened that those notes, it happens. The things we love about owner financing is that it provides the opportunity to sell them more quickly at a higher return for us. Mm-hmm. Right? So we love generating notes that way because it just keeps things flowing.
So your first, you said your first 2 you sold on that. How did you decide which market to go in for your first 2 purchases? Was it kind of just like I stumbled across them in my city, or was it like, no, man, when I dove in, I started actively marketing and I just kind of picked it out? Like, how did you get to the market that you purchased those first ones, and then how did that market sort of change, and how did you expand out into different markets?
I think I know this one. He had a hat. He just picked the city out of pretty much the hat. It's kind of how it sounded from what I remember.
It's kind of what it feels like, yeah, basically. So I basically said, okay, where do I know anything about anything when it comes to real estate? Like, well, I live in Arizona, and I know something about Arizona real estate. Like, not a lot, but more than 0. So let's start here. So that was basically picked my state based on that, just proximity. And then from there, did a little more research to figure out like which parts of the state I wanted to focus on. Sent out 500 ugly green postcards, and like just like out of pure like happenstance, like the Lord blessed me to be like, here's your opportunity to like see if this can work. And I got someone who called me back, had a conversation, and they own 13 properties. They had a tax foreclosure years ago. And I was like, oh, all right. So then I proceed to drive to every single property in the entire state. So I'm like, did this like 2 weekend trip where I'm driving around the state looking at every property, taking pictures and seeing all of that. And then I meet up with him for breakfast. I drive out to where he lives in Arizona. We meet for breakfast, and I say, look, here's the deal. Of the 13 properties you own, 10 of them are trash. I didn't use that exact term, but I was like, I don't really want these 10. But these three are promising. Like, we can work something out. So we negotiated a deal for those 3 properties. And then once I closed on those 3 properties, which I did outside of title, with a cashier's check at a bank, which was not wise in hindsight, but it worked out. And then I was able to take those 3 properties and then turn those into the notes that we were talking about.
That's great. So that I find that's
drove
how
all the way
it
around the
works,
state. Wow.
You throw out 500 postcards and you just like you get it. And what would happen if your first 500 go out and you don't get anything? You're like, that's. I mean, I know.
The reason I know that was like divine intervention, because I sent out the 500, got those deals, and was like, holy crap, I'm going to be filthy rich in like 7 months. Like, it's so easy, right? It was fish in a barrel. And I was like, sweet. Next thing I do is send out 5,000 green postcards, and I got 0 deals.
Oh, wow.
That's 5,000 green postcards. And I was like, okay, that was nice, like, reality check. Okay, now I get it. So, yeah, all right, now, this is actually work, and I just got lucky. All right, now let's see what it's going to take to make this work long term.
That seems like something that I've seen talking to different.
That's like when I bought my first note. It was like the first note, somebody out of the blue kind of called me and said, hey, are you interested in buying a note? And I was like, yeah, I'll take a look at it. And I, $8,000 for $90,000 in debt. And I just happened to do what I shouldn't have done and called the borrower before I bought the note, and they said they would sign the house over to me. So we did all that, and I just sold that property, bought it for $8,400, sold it for $38,000, and did it in 14 days. And I was like, we're going to be filthy rich. Well, this is going to be, it's so easy. And then of course, there was not one that was that easy after that. We had a lot of good ones, but nothing was that easy. And I feel like you're right. Divine intervention is like, here, take your opportunity. Let's see what happens. And if you do it and you make it, at least get your foot in the door and it wets your whistle, and you know how it can be. Mm-hmm. So
yeah,
that's interesting with the letters you're talking about, because I've heard that over and over with talking with different people about the consistency that you have. After I'm sure the 5,000 went out, that was probably a little bit like, ooh, wow, I sent out 5,000, so 10 times the amount, and then nothing.
Yeah, well, you sent out 500, then you sent out 5,000. how did you go to stay in that same area, or did you move out to other areas at that point?
Yeah, I entered what I called my experimentation phase, where I effectively just started trying stuff, right? Because I saw what worked well in that beginning moment, and then what didn't work directly after that, and I thought, holy crap! Well, what does work? How can I consistently do this? So then I tried different parts of Arizona. I tried different states. I tried different asset types, of land. So I kind of mixed up what I was doing and sent to a lot of different places for a lot of different types of land. And it took me probably 18 months of fumbling around in the dark, occasionally finding deals and finding good deals and finding deals I thought were good that weren't, and kind of getting through that till I really realized what consistently worked for me, what the pattern was. Once I identified the pattern, then it became just building the system around it.
How has the marketing changed? Well, two questions really. When you got into it 6 years ago, has the industry changed between, I guess 2018 and now 2024? And my second part to that question would be, how has your marketing changed? You sent out 500, 5,000. Are we still sending out 5,000 at a time, or is that a different recipe, a different, math equation?
Yeah, it feels like continuous change since we started. So in the beginning, I sent out just neutral postcards saying hey, I would like to buy a property. Then that eventually morphed over the experimentation phase into blind offers. So we sent a one-page introduction, one-page contract for the property. Mm-hmm. And so that is where I live today, effectively. And I've tried lots of things, but that is the one that I like the best and what we're really in on. And we're just always trying to get better and better and better at. And at this point, our goal is to send out, through the rest of the year, our goal is to send about 150,000 units a month.
Hold on. Did you say 150,000 units a month?
Correct.
Have you been doing that all year long up to now, or do you take months off?
We've spent the last 6 months, really 12 months, but rebuilding our systems so that we can scale up to that point.
Wow.
And so we consistently send 100,000 units at a time. That's our usual batch, has been for years. But we're scaling that up to 75,000 every other week. So our target is around 150,000.
That's good.
Wow. So let me make it straight. So let's just say on Monday, first of the month, you're sending 100,000 instead of dripping it out every week. Is that what you said?
Correct. Yeah. Basically, instead of being I'm going to send 5,000 a week, we just added a number in front and said we're going to send 75,000 a week.
Wow. Oh, so you are still dropping it every week.
Okay. No. So we'll just said on Monday, 75,000 units will go out the door. Well, I like Fridays, but they'll go out the door, and then 2 weeks later, we will send another 75,000 units.
Oh, wow.
And so I probably know I think I know the answer to this. Did you hire a bunch of people to answer the phones, or, do you have systems set up to do this, or, do you have automations? Do you have workflow? I imagine you do if you're sending that many pieces of mail.
Oh yeah, this is 6 years in the making, right? So the short answer is that we lean more towards technology than people to solve a lot of these problems. We also have dialed in the type of marketing we do. So blind offers yields a much lower response rate than something like a neutral letter would, right? Because neutral letter just says, hey, I want to buy your property. No qualifiers, no real qualifiers. A blind offer says, I would like to buy this 5 acres for $36,542, right? And so they see the 36,000 and say, heck no, and chuck it.
Right.
They're not my people. I want them to drop that in the trash and move on, right? That's what I want. Or to call me and say, don't document anymore, which is great, I'll take off my list, right? Mm-hmm. But I want them to be in or out from the beginning. So we have a much lower number of responses from those number of letters, but the quality of the lead is significantly higher, right? Because our leads are either in or out. We've already pre-qualified them on price, right? Which is the hardest pre-qualifier. Usually what you do at the end of a negotiation, not at the beginning. So when we start with price, our leads are they're either in or out. They're like, hey, don't ever call me again, or hey, I saw your price and I still don't hate you. They're like, okay, cool, let's talk, right? Mm-hmm. So then that lets us have a much more focused conversation with much higher quality leads. And it still keeps us our ROAS from our most recent mailer is on pace to be 9x. Right? So we still have a solid ROAS for our marketing spend, and as I can maintain a 7, 9, 10x ROAS, why not just ship as much mail as I possibly can?
That makes total sense. Question here, though. and I'm sure there's got to be some kind of magical science to this, where you are sending 75,000 letters every 2 weeks. How in the world are you doing blind offers? I mean, that's got to be insane, because that's just a lot of...
That's where the technology, that's where there's a lot of like research, a lot of technology, a lot of comes into that, right? So, because we do a lot of pre-qualifying to make sure we're sending to the right kinds of properties, so we're not just sending the stuff we don't actually want. We do a lot of pre-work, like this is an evolving topic, so I'll just tell you like how we have done it. Historically, I have had, over the last 12 months, I've done this a couple ways. Over the last 12 months, I had an appraiser on staff working 20 hours a week, just pricing blocks of properties. And then it's maintained in a proprietary database that is then like merged into the letters to determine what the exact price of a given property is that we put on the letter that we send to them.
Jeez.
So you've done, it's not just, hey, I'm going to send out a bunch of, you have done a lot of drilling down, and I would imagine it's county specific, but even more so, you got to know the type of lot you are. How much is it buildable? Is there wetlands on there? I mean, you have to have some technology in place to identify, what's actually going on with this piece of dirt.
Totally. Like to back to your question of like, how did it change? Like 6 years ago, you could send 50,000 letters for like, and just offer a flat $1,000 for everything. And then you would get deals like miraculously. And there's always a matter of like statistics there, but you would actually make money, right? And it'd be like, it wasn't nearly as common for this type of marketing to go out, especially for land. But the competition in land has picked up precipitously over the last 6 years. And so the level of sophistication and like how dialed in you have to be has gotten like more and more competitive, right? And so this is just us keeping up and trying to stay ahead of our effectively our competitors, right? Which we often collaborate with, just that kind of community. But basically the people who are competing for these same deals, like we need to get better. We need to do more dialed in offers. We need to make sure we understand exactly what our properties are. We need to understand like how we have these conversations with the sellers. So as with any business, you're always tuning all the different aspects of it in the pipeline to make widen things out and make it better and increase ratios. But this is one of the things that we're really focused on is blind offers and how to be like world class at blind offers. Because if you're not really good at blind offers, you probably shouldn't be doing them at all. This is going to hurt you more than it's going to help you.
I can see that.
What percentage of, and maybe I know you have this, how accurate are you, like with what's the standard deviation of what your blind offer is to what you actually buy it for? Are you pretty close on your blind offers?
Yeah, so here's what I can tell you. I can tell you that the numbers for the deals that we buy, our blind offers are typically within 110%, right? Within 10% effectively, right?
Yeah.
So if we're offering 100% is our final price, we're usually within that 110 range. So let's say within 10% of ours, those are the ones that we buy. I can't tell you about the ones that we didn't buy because they didn't call us.
Right.
Right. And we don't necessarily go through and dig all that data and analyze all that, right? Because we got stuff to do. But what that tells me is that if we can get close, it don't have to be perfect. If we can get within 5 or 10%, we can start a conversation. If we can start a conversation, we can close it, right? So like that's the key. So for us, it's all about getting as close as we can. Perfect's great, but we're not expecting that. But we can get pretty dang close on our offer. It'll be close enough to have the conversation and like lock something.
Once you get to that point of okay, we've got them with this in this 10% window either way. At that point, does it convert over to human interaction there? It's a phone call and a people business, or is there still, is it in-house? Are we going out? Or, we have somebody else who's like, okay, somebody's interested. They make the phone call. It's an outsourced third party. Or it's like, no, anybody that's calling, we're talking to them in-house.
Yeah, so that's, you're right. So what we've been talking about is marketing, right? And then we're talking about sales. So when it comes to the sales funnel, that's a matter of us going through, right now they're driven to a receptionist group, which we just have a virtual receptionist team for that currently. And that's always something we're improving, but like they go through virtual reception. So someone answers the phone, takes the message, then we immediately call them back and we work to close them, right? So again, because our lead flow is really constricted based on the type of marketing we do, we can spend time with those higher quality leads.
Sure.
To get everything closed.
Some people would look at that and say, well, I want to talk to everybody. You're missing deals. But you're saying, no, I only am talking to the people that I want to talk to. So I might miss deals, but I'm also, my close rate has got to be much higher, and I'm not wasting time.
100%. Yeah, it's really an efficiency game, right? So like, you're right that they would be 100% correct in saying that like, if we talk to everyone, we would have a better chance of closing more people. Totally. But the reality is that from an efficiency perspective, it's better for me just to talk to the highest quality leads until I run out of leads. And until such time as we are mailing the entire country, right, consistently, then I'll talk about changing my process, right? Then we've capped out our market, but that is so far away that that's not even something to worry about right now.
There's that much land out there that you can offer on. Do you look at like, okay, we need to expand states? Like, how many states are you guys in?
Well, that mailing is effectively across 3 states.
3 states.
Oh, geez, that's a lot in 3 states.
That is a lot.
That's a lot. Wow. And you don't do any follow-up then, huh? So like once it's gone out and they haven't answered, that was the letter.
Well, we remail consistently. So
you do?
We remail the same group, over and over again. Yeah, because realistically, like, it's a statistical game. Like, some people never see the letter, some people never open the letter. Sometimes grandma picked it up. It just doesn't matter. You know, like, at some point, we send somebody like the 8th letter they've gotten from us in the last whatever time period, and they're like, I've seen this letter for the first time, and you're like, I literally sent 7 of these to senders. There's no way you didn't get these more. But they didn't. Like, they didn't see it, or it wasn't the right time, or they were blind to it, or whatever.
Yeah, that's interesting.
When I send a certain amount, I have a certain response rate, like, as a percentage, and then I talk to a certain percentage of those people. It's just a funnel.
Yeah, it's a funnel.
So the more I put it in the top of the funnel, the more I get at the bottom.
With the when you do follow up, say like you're following up on your blind offers, do you change your blind offer, like make it more, or is it you just stay with, like, if you're offering 30,000 on the first letter, the next 8 letters is still 30,000?
We're trying to consistently review our pricing. Like, if we get we're like, oh yeah, we just botched this offer, we offered double what we should have. Like, we go into our database and say like, okay, let's update the pricing structure here. And every time we go to mail, it uses the same central pricing database. So then if we've made edits to it, the next time we send mail out, it will use the most updated version.
It's interesting.
So occasionally we do update, and then we do have kind of regular refresh cycles where we're going back and looking at it. But outside of like the 20 to 23 range where prices were changing really quickly, like, land tends to be pretty stable pricing wise. So it's going to go up a little bit or down a little bit for the type of rural land that we specialize in.
Right.
Like, it's pretty stable pricing, so it doesn't change on a dime.
Interesting. So yeah, I find that land is very interesting, because I found that, a lot of the magic comes with how you develop the list. I think I've watched some videos by, like, I forget his name's Michael Robertson or something like that, but he has these very structured ways, and I'm like, that's an art in itself. The letter sending, the testing the different offers is like to me, like, coming from an online world, I consider those the landing pages. Those are like the landing pages, and you're split testing different landing pages, and you're kind of wondering what's the tweak that works. Back in the day, you changed the button color, or change the call to action, and that seems like that's that action, and that's the marketing funnel. And then you have the sales funnel, and then you have the closing funnel, and then you have the disposition funnel. It's like you have like all these different, because that's a whole different side of marketing. You have to have the marketing on the disposition side of, where do you put it? Where do you put it out? What are the photos you do? How do you, it's like that's a whole different marketing piece. But there's so many aspects to it that I'm just wondering if, like, you focus, being that you've done this for, which is 6 years is a long time in this industry. You hear we talked to a lot of the note investors that come on our site, and they might have gotten 2020 seems to be like the magical year. Everyone went crazy on it, but you've been in it before that. But do you find, hey, JT, I'm the best at, or I tend to focus on this aspect of it more than I have the dispositions seems easier, or what? Are
you wondering, like, is he like more focused on, like, systems, or focused on marketing?
I would imagine that his background is definitely focused on systems, but like also understanding, like, you think you're better at this or that or this or that, and how do you find that right person for that? Because it can't be everybody.
Right. I mean, every aspect of the business affects the overall strategy for sure, right? But for me, what I try and remember is that at our core, we are an acquisition, like a marketing and acquisition machine. That's what we really are.
Yeah.
Like, as long as we buy good deals, like good property at a really good price, a lot of other stuff kind of takes care of itself to a certain extent. Right? Like, if I've got a killer deal, it's a lot easier to find financing, and it's a lot easier to sell it for a good margin on the backside, and it's a lot easier to, so there's just a lot of pieces about that that get easier if we do our job up front, which is like finding good deals at a good price. right? So for us, I try and stay focused on that part of it. And so like my stated goal is to be like world class at blind offers. That's what I want. I want to be world class at that. And if I'm okay at dispositions and I'm okay at like this part of our sales funnel or this part of our process, like I'm okay with that for now, right? Like as we get bigger, I could more people, more resources, easier to fine tune those things. But we have to be freaking world class at blind offers, or our business just isn't going to survive long term.
That makes sense. Just be really, really, I mean, you make all your money on the buy, right? Mm-hmm. And if you can, hey, if you're world class at blind offers and negotiating and getting good deals, they're going to sell, man. Those deals sell. When you're selling these things, do you find that there's a certain type of buyer that you're working with? Is it somebody looking to buy a plot of land for a family compound, or is it more recreational use of the land or hunting or, somewhere to go take the family and just, get into the woods, that kind of thing?
Yeah, we've found so far that our buyers come in three main flavors, which is recreational, as you noted, like hunting, fishing, like building a dirt track, whatever they want, right? Rural living, which is like, I want a cabin, I want a second home, I want to raise pigs out here. Great, that all works too. And then the third one is like investors, right? Long-term holds. So they're like, hey, I just want a land bank. I want to like collect these out. I just like to own land. That's what I'd rather have, right? Mm-hmm. Cool. So they're usually one of those three main buckets, and there's lots of sub buckets there, but those are kind of the big types of buyers we tend to work on the disposition side.
Do you plan that way? Like you're like, okay, this is a piece of land that would be great for a hunter. Do you go to like the hunting Facebook groups and stuff like that and post them and stuff like that?
Or hand them off to real estate?
Yeah, we don't typically target at that level, but we do take that into consideration when we do the buy, right? So we're buying a certain type of property. We're like, oh, this is 300 acres in this region. Like, okay, like how's the access? Oh, it's okay. Okay, so look, we're going to be dealing with an investor. Like they don't care about going to see it and use it every day. They just need to know that like there's legal access to it and that the price per acre is competitive. So we need to know that we're buying it at a price per acre that will get us. We're not going to sell it to a retail buyer. Like they're not the right person for this much land in the middle of nowhere, but the right kind of investor is. They do want to hold, 150 acres or 350 acres or whatever in a given region, right? So we kind of understand at a high level who the right buyer will be when we acquire it, and we make sure that our acquisition process and our underwriting meets like that buyer's criteria before we close.
That's smart.
If you're going to say like, look, this is just my cookie cutter deal. Like 5 acres, 10 acres, 200 acres. You're like, man, you show me this 10 acre deal and I can run the numbers in my sleep in the area. And I know that like, look, this is just, we'll turn and burn these things all day long. Do you have that dialed in?
Yeah, I would say it depends on the region. But in general, we buy stuff 3 acres plus because we like higher acreage. It's just less zoning requirements, less everything. It's easier. We usually focus on the price more than the size. Mm-hmm. So as long as it's got some core attributes like usability and good access, things like that, then we're shooting for stuff like we do really well in the buy 30 to 50 range, sell 70 to 100 range, right? That's our bread and butter. And sometimes we buy higher and sometimes we buy a little bit lower, but that's kind of where we sit and find that we have the most success.
That's good. So there's that. It's that price point of buying 30 to 50, selling 70 to 100. It seems to be easier to do there. Well, that's always good. Do you sell like what's your split on cash sales to owner finance sales?
Yeah, we are typically selling. It changes over time, but in the last while we're around 25% owner finance sales right now, and then the rest are cash. We offer owner financing on almost everything. So it's just a matter of like how attractive is our financing terms for a given property, and that's based on what we buy it for and the kind of property.
Right. I would say if you got something for 30 grand that you could sell for 100 grand, and you could say, look, we'll owner finance it with 30% down. It's a no-brainer. You're recycling your cash, and now you've got a $70,000 note paying you, and you've got. We did a podcast earlier. Yeah. You broke the calculator. Your returns are kind of infinite at that point.
Mm-hmm. So cash flow.
It's all. Does it vary? I would imagine everything varies by per deal that comes in. You're like, oh, this one's like we can definitely do that, maybe a play similar to what I said, or no, this one we kind of probably have to sell it cash so we can free up the cash, or maybe it's predicated on, hey, let's free up some cash, let's just really sell this one as a cash deal?
Yeah, our metrics are, we want our initial capital back in 12 months. That's our target. So we'll owner finance if we can hit that target. So whether that's like $20,000 down and $2,000 a month, to get us to our $40,000 buy-in price, or it's, $10,000 down, and even we'd be done like $5,000 down and $5,000 a month, and then they got us to where we need to go. So we'll do whatever terms get us to that point. But we have minimums around down payments and monthly payments and things like that. But as long as we meet our minimums, then it's like, yeah, whatever configuration works for them. We're pretty flexible on the length. We're pretty flexible on the amount of payments, and within reason the down payment as well. We want to find something that gets us our capital back in 12 months. And if we're too far outside of that window, if it's like a 20-month payback, we'll just usually pass. Like, we just can't make it work for our model.
That's interesting.
That's I know a lot of, sorry if I cut you off, a lot of there's been two different avenues I've seen people take in the land business. Some charge 0% interest and some charge an interest rate. Do you fall on, which side of that do you fall, or do you kind of like, it just depends on the deal?
Yeah, the only time I ever consider 0% interest is if they pay it down in less than 12 months. So if they put, let's say, it's a $50,000 loan and they're going to put $20,000 down and then pay the other 30 over a 12-month period, then I will offer them 0% interest to do that. Otherwise, and that's really rare that we have that kind of arrangement. Generally speaking, we just charge around 11.9 as our standard interest rate.
Yeah, that's pretty standard.
Yeah, that seems to be it. I would fall on the 11.9 side versus the 0% side, even if they were going to pay it off in a certain amount of time, just because I'm like, I don't know. Do you? I don't know if you've done real estate investing. Do you find that the land, you like it for one reason? Maybe there's less due diligence, maybe less, regulation, stuff along those lines, or how do you feel about all that?
Yeah, I find that land, some of the aspects I love about land is that it's simple. It's a much simpler transaction because, as you know, the diligence is not nearly as stringent. There tends to be less regulation. Some of the areas we deal in, there are literally no zoning. Like, we call the county, and there's no zoning specifications for that property, so you could do almost anything. And so when you deal in land like that, our buyers, again, back to like acquiring from the buyer, our buyers love that. They're like, yeah, I can do, they're not going to tell me what I can do out here. Like, my 25 acres, I can do whatever I want. You're like, dude, it's the middle of the desert, you can do whatever you want, man. Like, they're not gonna even come check on you. So, but that's what we like. We like to buy property that has less restrictions, less issues, less gotchas. Because it always sucks when you get deep into a deal and then find out there's this one thing you forgot to check, and then it kind of wrecks the profitability, or like now you're in a loss, or it's going to take forever to sell, or whatever. That just tends to happen less with land because there are less hoops to jump through and less regulatory bodies that have something to say about it.
That's interesting.
Yeah. Have you guys? I mean, I imagine in the business it's happened, but have you had some that you're like, we've missed something here. We bought it, and now we've got this deal. It's like, look, we just got to get rid of it.
Oh, 100%. I got one of those today. Like we've got we have this deal where we bought, and for whatever reason in our due diligence process, which we've now fixed, we missed that on the property was a Class 2 regulated dam. So we now own a portion of a Class 2 regulated dam, which we've had to pour tons of money into getting up to snuff just to get to the point where we can sell it to the next person. And with like clean conscience, be like, hey, this is totally fixed. Everything's good to go. Like, we're losing money, but like, we need to get this back, like the money back in the coffers and move on. Right? Wow. So yeah, it totally happens. Like, it's not that it can't happen, it's that it just doesn't happen nearly as much when you're buying dozens and dozens of properties. Yeah,
it's some people, when I got in the note business, we hit this ridiculous streak. When you're really small and you're not doing a lot of volume, you tend to just pour over a deal and just dissect it every way. You miss a lot less stuff. And they said, look, if you haven't lost money on a deal, you haven't done enough deals. It's going to happen. Just know that it's going to happen. Something will happen. So yeah, it goes to that point. How do you feel? So you originate a loan, right? You owner finance it. So, like, what do you do? Do you onboard it with a servicer, or what do you do in that aspect of it? Because it's been tough, I found, finding loan servicers that are just specifically for land. They're out there, but there's just not a lot of them. And
there's one out there that's specific.
So, like, what do you do there?
Yeah, so for us, we manage all of our stuff in-house. So we leverage yourlandloans.com as a platform to self-manage all of our notes, and that just helps make the whole process a lot simpler. Obviously, regulation is a complicated concept and topic depending on where you're happening, but we found that things tend to be a bit easier on the land side than something like a owner-occupied single-family home. And so we typically just bring that all in-house, and then we find that our buyers, the quality of buyer that we typically deal with is higher than some other people in our industry. And so we found that it's really easy for them to get on and make their payments and keep up to date. And so self-managing has been a good option for us.
And so is that yourlandloans.com? That's you, right? You made your own platform, because like many people that deal with the debt service, there's always something that they don't care for with the servicing, and they're like, I can do this myself if I've got the software. So you created your own software, yourlandloans.com, right? And
correct. Yep.
Can anybody use that, or is it just anybody can sign up to use that if they've got land notes?
100%. Yep. So we made it because the options, especially at the beginning, when we looked around, there just weren't acceptable. We wanted to self-manage intentionally. And so when we looked for solutions to self-manage, there were no good solutions available. They were like okay and crappy and all kinds of variants of that, but we were like, we want something that we're going to be really happy with. And so given my background, I decided one day that that's it. I'm just going to make my own platform. I'm going to develop my own platform to manage these notes. And that was a few years back now. And so since then, we have gone through the full development process and launched it. And, we help lenders every day doing it, self-manage their platform or their note portfolios. But yeah, that's open to the public. It's open to anyone who wants to self-manage land notes. It's specifically built for land notes.
Yeah.
We're kind of engineered around that to make managing land notes specifically as easy as possible.
I have seen a lot more people on the platform than when they're doing servicing transfers, especially definitely with land. Like, I remember when you first launched it. I think I interviewed you the first month. It was like in January 1 year. And I've seen it's starting to get a lot more momentum in the space, which is great. That's awesome. And I've seen the actual software, and when you said at the end, they're like, yeah, this is something I've created, but then you're like, I also run this. Wait a second, how is he doing all that? And you did this? I was like, wow. I was impressed because it's really well put together. It's a gorgeous piece of software. Well done there.
I appreciate that. Yeah, we definitely work hard to the beautiful thing about having a technical background and a land background is that I have a really good sense as to what land lenders need because I am a land lender, right? So it's hard when you're building software for someone else and what they need. You're always trying to get feedback and get things right. But for me, I'm on there regularly, right? So I'm on there both as a lender and a borrower. So some of the hard money lenders I use for land also use the platform to manage their hard money loans for land. And so I'll be on there as a borrower checking things out, and I'll say, that button wasn't clear enough. I think we need to make this bigger. And then I'll message our developers and say, make this better, Or I'll say, it'd be really nice if we had this feature that allowed us to pay these people in this roundabout way, or that in this specific scenario, and then we'll put it on the list and we'll make a feature. So we're always trying to improve it because I use it actively, and I like high quality software because I have the experience in that. And so it's I'm not going to settle for a mediocre product that I personally use. Forget that, right? So I'm always constantly improving, and we're constantly taking user feedback. People regularly message us and say, hey, this is hard, or I don't understand this, or I was a little bit confused. And then we'll say, okay, let's see how we can make this better. Can we make this title more clear, or can we add an extra checkbox here that makes it easy for them? We always find ways to make it easier, faster, and more efficient.
Yeah, that's. I remember. I don't know if I requested, but I know it's there now. Is that before people would buy? Is it, can they just change out, instead of having someone have to change it to a different land loans account, there's some way they could just switch the numbers? Remember, it's a transfer this one to someone's account? Mm-hmm. And you're like, yeah, I think we can do that. And then I heard, you've had that for a while now, because I remember someone has said, yeah, no, it's in there. I was like, That's cool. And now we're working on the servicer integration where your land loans and Paperstac can work together to where hopefully data can flow back and forth easily and update the data such as UPBs and all the fun stuff on this. Yeah. So
how much does it cost for?
The platform is pretty
it's affordable.
Expensive right now.
Oh.
Yeah, it's a pretty affordable option. So the edge, like the first loan is free, right? So if you just have one loan, you can go on and just check out the platform, put the one loan, and then get rolling. After that, we have tiers that range from $25 to $100 a month. And $100 a month is literally unlimited notes at this point. So it's like you can put on as many notes as you want and get them rolling. So we designed it intentionally so that like if you're self-servicing, you can get on, you can get what you need set up, and then we could be kind of a solid, like kind of best in class for self-service.
Perfect. Yeah. Is it just land notes at this point, or can I service other notes on there?
Currently is just land notes. We do have people doing hard money loans on land notes and managing those. And we also have traditional just like lending borrower relationships with land notes. But it is built exclusively around land at this point. We try and stay focused on serving that niche like to the best possible, like as best we can.
So, side question here. Being that you've been in it for so long now, I mean, like I said, 6 years, like the future of land investing, where do you think it's going? Like I know I've heard talking to different people in the different iterations of where people have gone in their stages, where the new technology that's come out, like such as ID.land is a new one that's been out for a little bit, but these newer tools are making it easier and easier. I mean, and per our conversations we had in Vegas with somebody who was using stuff like Bubble and different things like that, where do you think, do you have any ideas? Because I know that you're on the cutting edge of it. I know if there's a cutting edge that you're right there looking in. What do you think where the future of the land investing and note space for that is going?
Yeah, I think technology-wise, I think there's like so many fronts people are pushing on right now. I would say the big ones that a lot of people are working on is kind of in some way lags a little bit behind the house flipping space, right? Mm-hmm. So if you look at something like flipping a single family home, right? And I interact with a lot of those guys. They, like when they decide who they're going to mail, like they just do tons of list stacking, right? So like, all right, I can buy this list with this list and this list, and I have this really focused group of people to target. And that works for them given the amount of properties they could purchase and the fact that they're typically in person in their interactions are the most common, right? And so for land, we can't quite do it the same way, but more and more, we are spending a lot of time like scrubbing out undesirable properties from our marketing right up front, or segmenting a list so that we know there's this like kind of fatal flaw with this particular type of property, and then we can market to that group. Like, oh, you all have tons of wetlands on your property. We're going to offer a different price, and we're going to talk about that in our marketing. It says like, hey, I know you have wetlands. I'm okay with that. I know you've had 3 people go into contract with you, and they all bailed, right, because of these wetland issues. But like, I understand the wetlands, and I'm going to buy it, but I'm going to buy it at this price. Let me know if you're interested. And so like the more we can do that, the better our marketing is getting. And I think I see the industry pushing more and more that direction. As to how it gets done, that's still kind of like segmented and fractured at the moment. People are doing it like with a little bit of software, with armies of VAs, like whatever it could do, whatever people need to do to get it done. But I see us kind of collectively pushing that way, especially in the last like 12 to 18 months. That's been more and more of a topic of discussion.
I imagine that. Yeah.
I would imagine with sort of what you were just describing, the industry has probably exploded with the number of people, but I find that with the technologies you're talking about, there's the wider population has less of an understanding, and there's probably going to be more of a fall off, and the cream will rise to the top, and you wind up with the people who are doing this as a business. Like, let's face it, you're not doing a W-2 job anymore. This is your business. Mm-hmm. It makes it more difficult for somebody who's like, I'm gonna do a little land flipping on the side. I would imagine it becomes more difficult for them to compete as you keep raising the bar on, look, this is where you need to be if you want to be at my level.
You're 100% correct. So 6 years ago, when I got started, it was just so easy, so much easier. Like, so much easier to get started, do it on the side, do all of these things. I was telling everyone I knew, I was like, guys, this is like free money. You should just try it. Like, you could send out almost any marketing and make money. It's wild. That is just not the case today. Like, you have to know what you're doing. Now, to your point, a lot of technology has been developed that has like lowered the barrier to entry. However, technologically, in order to compete, you do still have to the level of sophistication on the marketing side has gone up. So effectively, like, the technology has made it easier and the competition has gotten higher, like almost in a correlated way, right? So it's like, it hasn't really gotten any, I would say it has gotten harder to do. But it's just that what has to be done has changed, right? Like, before you had to figure out a way to solve this technological problem, that's solved for you now. But instead, you have to solve this other problem because everyone is doing that now. It's no longer a differentiator. That's no longer a competitive advantage. In order to do that, you have to compete at this level of marketing, or you have to be able to spend this much money. Like, often when I'm coaching new people who will come into the platform, come into the industry, I'll tell them, like, you have to be different. Like, you have to find a way to cut through the noise, because you're not going to outcompete me sending 150,000 letters a month. That's not happening. Like, do you have $100,000 a month you want to spend on marketing? I didn't think so. So you're not going to do it, right? So here's what you need to do. You need to find a way to narrow down your list and talk to these people and make sure, because I can't be as focused as you can, but you can get really tight, right? So the way that people are competing has changed. The barrier to entry has gone up a little bit, but I still think it's one of the best opportunities out there relative to this kind of niche. Like, this compared to house wholesaling, I think this is easier, right? And so, and I think there's still more opportunity to garnish. Like, when you look at big operators in the land space, if someone's doing more than $5 million in top line revenue, like, that's pretty dang impressive. Like, there's not very many of them. I think that's a really short list, right? Whereas, like, if you would ask 3-4 years ago, people doing more than $1 million in top line revenue was really impressive. But now that's a lot more people clearing that. So the niche is growing, the sophistication is growing, the business sizes are growing as people are developing, right? And so as that continues to grow, like, it's going to be 10 million and 20 million and 50 million are going to be the new benchmarks of really high competitors, right? And as that grows, the sophistication will grow, and the teams will grow, the technology will grow, and it will just all grow together.
So
that's interesting.
Somebody comes into the business and they're like, look, I got $1 million cash to start this business. Are they in a good spot? I mean, obviously they are, but I would imagine if you don't know what you're doing, you could burn your $1 million on just marketing if you don't have your systems and everything dialed in.
100%, yeah. Even if you have $1 million, like, if you have $1 million and zero experience running a business, I'd be like, ooh, hey, yeah, you're playing with fire. You're gonna spend your way. You can spend your way out of a lot of problems, but you're just gonna waste your money.
Yeah.
Right? So if someone came in and said, like, hey, I just sold this other really successful business that has 80% overlap, I'd be like, take your $1 million and go make a lot more, because you're going to be in a good spot, right? Because a lot of these business problems are fundamental business problems. They're not unique. They're not new. They're nothing about, it's just understanding how business should operate. And then it's just layering on the unique aspects of land. Like, okay, what do you need to understand about land and this niche and these types of buyers and sellers? Once you figure that out, not that hard, then you have this supported by these fundamental business problems that happen for business owners every day.
I like that.
Just how do you put systems in place to make shit run more efficiently?
Systems, yeah, no. I think that he's probably read the Strategic Coach book as well, then, huh?
I'm some familiarity with Strategic Coach, yes.
Yes, I mean that's I need to revisit that, because I mean that was a good book years ago, but then we weren't where we are now. So now it makes more sense for me to revisit that book, because I read that a number of years ago, and it just came up. I forget who it was that brought it up. Someone recently brought it up, and I was like, I need to get that book back down. So a question for you, being that you've been around, advice for a new guy in this space.
That's exactly the question I was about to ask. What advice are you going to give to somebody who's new coming into the space, and they, you say it's a great opportunity. Maybe they've got some real estate background. What are you telling them? Give them, a couple pieces of advice to get going in the land business.
Yeah, typically when I have that conversation, I start by understanding what kind of business they want, right? So if they want a casual on-the-side business that's more lifestyle, there's one way to grow that. And if they want to replace their W-2 income and they want to make $1 million next year, that's a different kind of conversation. But in general, the thing that I always focus on after I understand what it is they're trying to accomplish is, what is their competitive advantage? Like, why you? Like, why would they sell to you? Like, did more people call you? Did you have better conversations? Like, there's some aspect that's going to cut through the noise. Like, they're going to get 3 other letters from land investors this week. Why are they going to call you? Or they got 5 other phone calls or 17 other texts, like they got contacted. You're not the only person to reach out to them. But why are they going to choose you? Why are you going to be able to close that deal that someone else can't close? We're going to hold the person that they can't get a hold of, right? So you have to understand what your core competitive advantage will be in the beginning to cut through the tumult. So if you can get through that, right, then you can get to the point where you can have that conversation, lock up a deal, and then, like I said, we're an acquisition marketing business. If you can get the deal, like a good deal, closed, you can handle the rest. You can figure out financing, you can figure out the system to get it done, you can figure out the way to dispose of it. There's lots of options on that side. But unless you can buy the deal, right, and outperform your competitors, you're not going to be able to succeed.
So that's really it. It's like you better be able to stand out, you better be able to market. Because if you can't market for the deals, you can stumble into a couple of them. Everybody can do that, but it's like, it sounds to me like there's not this secret fishing hole where in the country where you're like, oh, I can just target this little area and nobody else is thinking about it or going over there. It's like, no, man, hey, we're all out here harpooning for whales or trying to, bring fish into the boat. We all know where the fish are. It's just who's gonna drop their bait and get that fish.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there are more competitive areas and less competitive areas, but at the end of the day, it's like you just need to cut through this.
I love this, yeah. And so last couple questions and we'll let you go, is that like communities, I know that you're a part of a lot of different things, different groups. If you're in this space, like, well, hey, you should probably check out these communities. This is a good place to be. I know we're going to the Land Scaling Summit. And so I didn't know if I know that you know all of them. So like anything, like you're like, hey, this is a cool place to be. There's where you can find a lot of smart people.
You're going to Italy, aren't you, or something like that with
I am.
With Alex.
With Alex to go into like a land mastermind deal or?
Yep, correct. Yep. So there are more and more as the years go on. There are lots of opportunities to get together with other land investors, and so I'm a little bit of a conference junkie, which is how you met me in Vegas, going to these events. But yes, I will be going to one in Italy in October. And it's like a small group mastermind for other land investors. In general, I would say I always point people to the RA Tipster Facebook group. I think it's a fantastic community. It's like Seth is like super giving, and so it's probably one of the most open, like helpful communities that I know of for land. So I typically will put people to there as a good place to get started and ask questions and learn. I think his course is awesome, and so I recommend that course as well. If you want to just dip your toe into the education.
I think I bought that course.
No, we have that course.
I've
gone through that course. Yeah, it's and the good thing about it is that he keeps adding to it. So it's not like he just created it and then he added the forum, which you just updated the forum. But he adds different parts to it. So it's really cool. He's done well with that course.
It's got significantly better since I bought it 6 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So it's the first course that I bought, and he's just made it better ever since. So that for me is the hallmark of a good course. Is too often courses get created and then they just die on the vine, and then 6 years later they're like, we should refresh this thing and sell it again because no one's buying it because it's so out of date, right? Whereas Seth doesn't have that problem. Seth consistently improves his course, right? He's always updating and adding new modules and expanding like the opportunities and details there. So. I always recommend Seth and Ari Tipster, and I think the Facebook group and his course are a great place to start for almost everybody.
Yeah, it's you said a couple things there that you're a realist or a seminar junkie, but then you're going with a small group of masterminds. And I had, just from our time in Vegas, it was from my take on that community, the land investing community. It's like you got just sitting down to dinner and having like 4 or 5 of you guys there who I would say are operators in the space, not onesie twosie guys, but people who are really doing this. The amount of information that was just free flowing back and forth and solving each other's problems and helping each other, saying, oh, you should try this, you should try that. You're competing against deals with them, but everybody's like, hey man, let's just make this industry better. I thought that was really cool. And a testament to you, who you are as a person, and just the people that you're surrounding yourself with. I think if you do that, really the sky's the limit for any industry if you find that kind of information. But I was really taken back on.
I think you're talking about like the abundance mentality, and I think a lot of it might have to deal with the fact of like, no one's fishing in JT's market, and they're not fishing in Alex's market. You guys are, you're hitting different places most of the time.
But felt like didn't even really matter. It's like, hey, we're fishing in the same pool, but we're just, let's help each other out, because it's just I might get something from JT at dinner that I wasn't even thinking about. And I saw, hey, how would you handle this? I saw people asking each other questions. Oh, I would have done this or that. And then, well, what do you think about this from somebody else? And you're helping solve each other's problems. And that's the idea behind a mastermind. Mm-hmm. That's the idea about surrounding yourself in this business. And I really felt like in the land flipping space, and I don't want to say the commoners, but the newer people I wasn't really hanging out with, but the people who were doing this for a long time, information was just like an open, hey, what do you want to know?
Yeah, the power
100%. Cool. Yeah, I think the abundance mentality in like a collaborative setting is key, right? And I find that a lot. And I will collaborate. Some of the people I collaborate tightest with, I directly compete with in some markets. And like, I'm okay with that, because at the end of the day, like the number of times that we run into the same deal is so small. Like, I can think of one instance where we had competed on a specific deal, and honestly, for example, if my sales guy gets one in and they're like, hey, we're negotiating with these other people, we'll just straight up tell them like, oh, Joe, I love Joe. Joe's great. Like, go with Joe. Like, he's a good dude. He'll take care of you. Like, just sell their property to Joe. That's fine. Like, there's so many other deals. It's okay if Joe gets that one, right?
Yeah.
And like, they're likely to do the same thing for me. They're like, oh yeah, JT, is that JT's deal? Yeah, JT's a great dude. Just sell your property to him, right? Like, and that's fine, man. Like, it's not a big deal, because there are so many more opportunities. It's not like we live in some world where, oh man, I've literally talked to every single person in this entire market. They all know exactly who I am, and they decide they don't want to sell their property to me. Like, there's so much opportunity. Like, we're not even scratching the surface of like $1 trillion industry, multi-trillion dollar industry in land. Right?
Yeah.
Like, what is like compared to that? We're like tiny. Right, so why would I worry about losing a deal or two to a competitor that I helped out, who also helped me out, right? To just get ourselves bigger. Like, that's how the niche grows. Just collaborate.
Well, that's cool. Good stuff, man. Well, JT, I mean, we've had you on the phone or on the call for a while. Thank you so much, man. I appreciate it. Always good to spend time with you. Are you going to the Land Scaling Summit? Will you be there or no?
I wish I could. Yeah, I will be out of country still for travel on that one.
Okay, sounds good.
So maybe Node Expo then, because I think we are attending for sure now.
So is he going to Node Expo?
Well, we were talking about it before.
I'm thinking about it. Let's do it.
Yeah, great, man. Looking forward to connecting with you. Thanks for coming on, sharing your knowledge. Wish you the best of luck. And if anybody's interested in getting in contact with you regarding your land loans, we'll put the links in the bio here or in the show notes, and people will be able to reach out to you and use your software to help service their stuff.
Yeah.
So sounds good. I appreciate that.
That's it for this edition of the Paperstac Podcast. Rick Allen, Brett Burky, and JT signing off.
See ya.
See ya.